Who says you can't mix business with pleasure? Folks, the American dream is alive and well.
Have you ever dreamed of flying? Then welcome to the wonderful world of a paraplane. Join us now as we explore the fundamentals of flight with a paraplane. How does the paraplane fly? Simple aerodynamics. The paraplane flies with the use of a flexible wing. The aerodynamic shape of the wing generates lift as it passes through the air. Although larger in size, the paraplane's flexible wing is identical to the ram air gliding parachutes that sport parachutists use. The body weight of parachutists, suspended from their canopies, drives them forward at an airspeed of 26 miles per hour. The same principle of flight applies to fixed-wing aircraft. They use the same basic aerodynamic wing shape to generate lift with their rigid wings. Suspended from the paraplane's flexible wing by nylon suspension lines and high-strength connector links is a rigid airframe on which the engine assembly is mounted and the pilot is securely harnessed. When throttling forward in level flight, the thrust rotates the paraplane, increasing the angle of attack and altitude. A reduction in power decreases the angle of attack, and the paraplane descends. Controlling the flight direction of the paraplane is extremely simple. By itself, the paraplane will inherently fly straight forward. However, it's easy to make turns. Turns are accomplished by pushing the steering levers with the legs. Push right, go right. Push left, go left. When the steering lever is pushed, the steering lines connected to the wing's trailing edge deflect and slow down that side of the wing. The rest of the wing, flying faster, pivots the paraplane in a controlled, stable arc. How does the paraplane maintain its inherent stability in all flight attitudes? Quite simple. It's the pendulum effect, the paraplane's unique self-correcting stabilization. The cart of the paraplane is a large pendulum, and the wing is a floating suspension point. The cart always swings back to its position below the suspension point. Wind gusts from any direction will affect the wing first, followed by the stabilizing pendulum reaction of the cart. The paraplane flies at an airspeed of 26 miles per hour in all flight configurations. Because of this constant airspeed and the pendulum effect, it is virtually impossible to stall the paraplane in flight. The numerous safety features of the paraplane make it one of the safest ways to experience flying.
What you've just seen is the first 4.5 minutes of a 20-minute video that your students view before taking their first solo flight. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Hi, my name's Lynn Marshall. I'm Director of Marketing for the ParaPlane Corporation with special responsibilities right now for developing a dealer network across America. During the next hour or so, we'll talk about the opportunity and what that means to you. We'll talk about the ParaPlane Corporation and the people behind it, the evolution of the paraplane in the recreational vehicle industry. We'll also explore a very interesting area, the future of the technology, where the paraplane is going in the future. We'll talk about international growth, and that's been quite phenomenal. We'll talk about what's required to be a dealer and dealer training for one representative. We'll talk about a totally turnkey operation and what makes it that. And then we'll take you to the bottom line. We'll talk about the profit potential as we explore the 10 profit centers in each paraplane dealership. We like to compare the paraplane and its position in the market today to another product that came out many years ago. We all, believe it or not, had a chance to become involved with this product. Had we? Well, we'd be in a much different financial picture right now. Talking about Honda, a Honda motorcycle, and now the Honda automobile. Their form of distribution was through a dealership. You could have gone in very inexpensively back then, before they even had competition like Kawasaki and Suzuki. Why the comparison? Both recreationally oriented, easy to operate, simple to maintain. Although in certain parts of the country this isn't true, but the Honda not limited to seasonal use. By the way, the paraplane does have as an option skis for winter use. An excellent safety record, superior dealer training. Back then, they had no competition, at least not in the import market. They do now. And they're both fun. Underline that word because it's going to mean so much to your profitability as a paraplane dealer. Fun. And that's what it's all about, making a playground out of the sky. You know, people from age 11 to 85 have flown the paraplane. And initially, the parapilots were 95% men. But lately, more and more women have been spreading their wings.
Sherry Maroney is a nurse and an aerobics teacher. Today, after one quick lesson, she's about to become something else, too. A pilot. This aircraft is considered so safe and so easy that just about anybody can solo in it within an hour after first laying eyes on it.
You see the top of the trees, you can see the barns. Just had the one lesson and took the test, and then I came out, and with instruction I was up.
Who hasn't dreamed of flying solo, all alone up in the air with an incomparable perspective on the world? The problem, you think, is that flying machines are expensive, they're dangerous, and many months of training are required in order to learn to pilot them. Has all that been stopping you? If so, it might not be long before you change your mind. New materials and new aeronautic designs have brought smaller, lighter, even safer aircrafts within the reach of almost everyone who has a craving to experience the wild blue yonder. This week on Innovation, we'll see how some amateur pilots are fulfilling their flights of fancy. Don't have the time or money to become skilled enough to operate a sailplane, hang glider, or ultralight? The ParaPlane may be the perfect vehicle to get you off the ground. Just about anyone can solo in a paraplane within an hour after first laying eyes on it.
Well, the unique thing about the paraplane is that it will fly all by itself. And the inventor, Steve Snyder, his goal was to invent an aircraft that people who always wanted to fly could go up and have that opportunity and learn to fly without the skill level that it takes to fly other types of fixed-wing aircraft like ultralights or regular planes like Cessnas.
The paraplane flies because we've done everything just right. When you look at it, you don't think it's very complex, but there is a complex design involved behind the simplicity that you see.
Basically, the paraplane is not a plane at all. It's a powered parachute. Two motors with counter-rotating propellers are attached to its small frame. Steering is done with the feet. Push right, go right. Push left, go left. The throttle is used to adjust the altitude. Add power and you fly higher. Decrease power and you descend. Because its wing is a large ram air type parachute similar to the kind used by skydivers, the ParaPlane flies at a constant speed of about 26 miles per hour.
The ParaPlane can never descend any faster than 10 feet per second. So if a person's flying around and shut their engines off, they would still parachute in at relatively a slow rate of speed, which is about 10 feet per second. A skydiver today descends at 16 feet per second. So we have taken the ParaPlane and made it descend slower than what a normal skydiver lands at. And of course, we all know that skydivers land on their feet. And of course, in this application, you're landing on an airframe, which you know, protects the body in all cases. I would say that it would be very, very difficult for someone to get hurt. And the reason for that is this. The inventor built the airframe out of high-quality aircraft aluminum, and it's very, very strong. And it is supported not only by itself, but also by, as you can see in some cases, stainless steel cable. The cart was made in such a way that if it were to ever turn over or to run into something, the pilot that sits in the seat here would never touch the ground. So you
The ParaPlane training course at the Burlington County Airport in southern New Jersey takes about 45 minutes. Students watch a videotape which covers the basics of their first flight. Next, they read a short manual, take a written test, and sign a waiver. Then they go out to the field where they get a further demonstration and instruction. In no time, it's Sherry's turn to be a pilot.
I saw people doing this, and it looked relatively easy and fun, and I figured, why not?
Recovering. Once you see it start descent, steer left now. Okay, now start recovering. There we go. Just maintain that altitude now and fly right down through there. Looking good. Just don't let it touch the ground. Our goal is to fly more people solo in the ParaPlane than have ever been soloed in aviation history. Excellent. What a super job. Okay, that's good. That's good. Now give me a little power, a little bit of power, and cut. Thank you.
You could pack a lunch and fly off somewhere. It's an hour and a half away, land, and have a nice picnic and take off. What better way than to fly?
Incidentally, I might mention that in all the videos you see, the parapilots are actually flying for the first time, except in the case of Steve Snyder or our Director of Safety and Training, Nathan Taylor. But they are actually flying for the first time. It really is that easy. Every American dreams at one time or another of owning their own business. But either due to a lack of determination or more probably guidance, very few ever realize that dream. That's why I thought you'd be interested in the fact that the ParaPlane Corporation shares your dream. We will do everything possible to see that that dream of owning your own business and mixing business with pleasure actually comes to fruition. And let's talk a little bit about the ParaPlane Corporation's goals and objectives. First of all, we believe that any geographical area in the country will support a ParaPlane dealership and first flight center, many 2 or more in metropolitan areas. The ParaPlane Corporation is staffed by an experienced and knowledgeable management team. As a matter of fact, the same people who were involved with the invention of the ParaPlane technology are still with the ParaPlane Corporation, and they're available to all dealers on a daily basis to respond to anything that might arise. And thirdly, we understand the importance of operating profitably. In order for the ParaPlane Corporation itself to operate profitably, its individual dealers must operate profitably. We keep that in mind in everything we do. But of course, first of all, is safety. Our goal and objective in the ParaPlane Corporation is to put safety first at all times, and I can assure you, we always will. What we're doing now is assembling a national network of motivated, coachable dealers. We'll select them on that basis. And if you've got the desire and the determination, we certainly have the training and the knowledge to see that desire and determination through. You combine all those things, and folks, you've got success. Success is something Steve Snyder knows all about. Here he is taking off in his Pinto as pride and joy. Steve is the inventor of the ParaPlane, our founder and our president. A graduate of aeronautical engineering from Georgia Institute of Technology. In 1959, Steve started SSE Incorporated after inventing the self-opening parachute. In 1969, he became the world's largest manufacturer of ram air parachutes after he invented those. Steve has received many national and international awards and is credited with saving more than 2,000 lives. With more than 5,000 hours flying time, Steve also has more than 3,000 parachute jumps, and 450 or more of those were test jumps. The man certainly believes in his own product. As you'll see a little later on a recent publicity tour of the Southeast United States, the interest in the ParaPlane was simply amazing. But what was even more amazing were the number of people who knew about Steve Snyder and his accomplishments. And Steve is with us in the studio, and we want to talk a little bit about the ParaPlane. And Steve, the ParaPlane really got, early on, a lot of international interest.
Well, it did kind of by accident. You know, when you come out with a product and you want to kind of introduce it, you think of ideas on how to get publicity for the product. And one of the plans that we had was to fly the ParaPlane across the English Channel. And we were getting ready to do that, and little did we realize that there was a Frenchman who had purchased the ParaPlane about a month before that, and he had the same ideas. And 2 weeks before we were planning our trip, he got everything ready, and he beat us to the punch and flew the first flight from England to France.
Isn't that something? To have a product as revolutionary as the ParaPlane, and then to have somebody not associated with it at all beat you to the punch, and probably one of the biggest publicity stunts that you could have dreamt up, flying the English Channel.
Well, I think it didn't matter who flew the flight as long as the people saw the ParaPlane flying across from the one country to the other.
And the world saw it. And a lot of people in Japan were privileged to view that fellow doing his little trip across.
Well, yes, there was a lot of coverage on it. Newspaper coverage was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the introduction that really brought in a lot of international interest, not only from Japan, but from all around the world.
Right, yes, and there has been an incredible amount. The Japanese experience, though, considering the fact that, first of all, land is at such a premium over there. Mm-hmm. It really is. To open a dealership in Japan is really a big deal.
Well, I think the thing that was amazing in Japan is that they were very impressed with the idea of a parachute that went up. The whole concept of a parachute that went up to the Japanese, I was told later, was really something that impressed them. Mm-hmm. And the ParaPlane just kind of fell into the hearts of the Japanese folks, and it's been very popular over there, and it's growing by leaps and bounds, and we're very pleased. And we're very excited that a country like Japan has taken the ParaPlane into its heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they certainly have. Correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't it cost a few dollars more in Japan to become involved in paraplaning?
Well, they are handling the marketing over there a little bit differently than just really selling paraplanes, and they're forming clubs in Japan, similar to golf clubs. Mm-hmm. And it's working out very nicely, and it's offering the concept of easy flight to everyone, and we are very excited about the fact that the ParaPlane is being introduced to countries, not just people, but countries of people of all different natures, and that's very exciting to us.
If you don't think the Japanese folks are excited about it, I want you to watch something here. A young lady, a Japanese broadcaster, flew, and the flight was filmed. Well, she brought the videotape to her show, used it as a back screen, and we're going to show the folks this young lady sitting in front of a film of herself flying the ParaPlane for the first time. I think you'll enjoy this. Think she was excited?
そこでいよいよこれから空への旅が始まろうとしてるわけです。さあ、かかりました。3、2、1って感じで。まっすぐ。いいですね。果たしても乗れたっていう感じで嬉しいんだけど。もうね、みんなが心配したのはね、無線の声がちゃんとあるの。みんなが心配したのはね、空に行っちゃうと無線の声が聞こえないぐらい失神するんじゃないかって恐れもあったけど、私はしっかり声が聞こえた。そしてですね、なんと100メートル上を私はいるんですよ。100メートルっていうのはね、全くの一元だったね、私にとって。頭の中が空っぽになってね、顔もキラキラキラキラ輝いてね、あ、これぞ自然の宝石だというような感じ。もうすごい、オーロラの空に見えちゃう。空がね、キラキラキラキラ輝いているんですよ。 ないことかもしれないけれどもね、もう自分が自然と同化していくっていう感じなの。そしてこれはいざ着陸っていう形なんだけれども、その時もエンジン音があれほど怖かったエンジン音が逆に心地よい感じになったしね。そして降りた時はね、もう終わったっていう安堵感と、もう一つはね、
Isn't she a sweetheart?
Unbelievable. The excitement that that woman registers in her eyes and her face tell the whole story. You don't have to understand what she's saying.
I know. It really is wonderful. We've got some German friends, too, who've generated an awful lot of excitement.
Yes, we had a German fellow come to us one day and said, I'd like to, I run a travel business, and I'd like to see if we could have some people take a trip to the United States. We'll fly them over, and when they get to the States, we'll fly them over to Phoenix, this beautiful country out there, and we'd like to teach them how to fly the paraplane as part of the tour.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd like to get your permission to do that. And so we said, okay.
And what is this, a para-tour?
It's a para-tour, and it's been very successful. They've come to this country, and they have run, I think, about 5 or 6.
Uh-huh.
And they are now planning for next year to run, I think, 10 to 20 tours of the same nature.
Now, let me get this right. These people fly all the way from Germany to a scenic spot in the United States, learn to fly the paraplane, and just enjoy themselves for a week or two.
Exactly right. And they don't just make one flight. They make several flights, and they become fairly proficient, and then they do some sightseeing in the paraplane. And they picked Arizona because it was a beautiful area to fly around, and it's been very successful.
Mm-hmm.
One of the flights is so dramatic, I couldn't believe it. They actually flew the paraplane down into Canyon de Chelly, which is absolutely breathtaking. It's so marvelous. When you see it on the film, it's just breathtaking to see it. It's very dramatic.
Steve, the sky's a wonderful place to be.
Well, I've always felt that way. I'd like to get the whole world up there if they'd like to go.
During dealer training, you'll be taught an awful lot about marketing the paraplane, which really is quite simple. Essentially, marketing the paraplane, or advertising the paraplane, is simply flying the paraplane. I referred earlier to a short tour that Barclay Curtis, my associate, and I took of the southeastern United States to elicit publicity for the paraplane. And we were just amazed at the response and the interest that we were able to generate. Flying the paraplane elicits coverage by the media. Believe you me, and we're about to prove that to you in just a few moments. But what happened in our case was, on a Monday morning, we'd arrive in a market, for example, Chattanooga, that we're about to see in a few minutes. And we'd contact the media. We'd drop off a press kit, a press release, much like the one that you received with this videotape. And that we would tell them that at 5:30 or 6 o'clock that afternoon, we were going to be flying the paraplane. Well, in almost every case on the 5:30 or 6 o'clock news, or at least the 11 o'clock news that night, there we were, in full color, flying the paraplane, and just a beautiful report. And another interesting fact about that is that, again, in every case, there was a reporter or more in each market that wanted to fly the paraplane themselves. In other words, do a feature story on the paraplane. So if we were able to do that in just one day in a market, imagine what you can do in your market. Here's a few examples of the kind of coverage that we got on television while on that tour of the Southeast United States.
And tonight in Campbell's Corner, low-budget open-air flying at its simplest. Bill shows us a paraplane.
It looks like an exhaust fan on casters, and really it isn't much more. But the guys who fly this gas-powered hybrid say it's as safe as flying can get. The paraplane flies at a constant 26 miles an hour. It cannot spin, and it cannot stall.
In nearly 30,000 solo flights in the paraplane, people who've never flown before, for the most part, no one's ever been hurt. The paraplane is the world's safest and easiest way to fly.
You crank up the twin counter-rotating engines. Strap yourself in. The wind catches the parachute, and away you go. It looks like purely a fun machine, but there are some practical uses too. Farmers use it to get a better look at their acreage, and on a limited scale, it can be used for crop dusting. The manufacturer's rep says you can learn to fly it in a half an hour.
To turn left, steer left with your left foot. to turn right, steer right with your right foot. To go higher, throttle up, and to go lower, throttle down.
And you usually come down to a nice, soft landing. The best thing about flying a paraplane is you don't need a pilot's license, just some common sense. On Davis Islands in Tampa, I'm Bill Campbell, Action News.
I don't know if I'd do that, though. What about you?
Well, why not? I don't think it'll replace Sky 10, but it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, you'll be doing the whole state with that. That's Action News for this Monday. Thanks for joining us.
Well, for close to $6,000, you can get your hands on a ParaPlane. The ParaPlane is a recreational vehicle that will take you soaring into the sky. News Center 12's Ryan Banfield takes us for a ride.
For centuries, man has dreamed of flying with the birds. As time passed, this dream became reality. This plane, called a paraplane, is the latest way man has devised to kiss the sky. At first glance, this machine looks like the combination of an airboat and a go-kart. But in reality, it's on the cutting edge of aviation. And the makers say anyone can learn to fly it in an hour's time. Bart Curtis is not a licensed pilot, but like many, he has dreamed of flying. He owes much of his flying experience to the paraplane, and he says he's never been nervous while flying it.
When it starts rolling along, the chute just billows up and it just lifts you right off the ground. And it's just like having a big security blanket up there.
Switch is on? Mm-hmm.
A lot of this is very new to me. It's just that I've always loved anything having to do with flying. It's just like flying a big rocking chair out there. And when it's real smooth, it's just delightful.
The plane retails for just under $5,800. It can fly up to 10,000 feet. It never goes over 26 miles an hour. And it can fit into the trunk of a car. The makers say it may be slow, but it offers many a chance to make a playground out of the clouds. Ryan Banfield, News Center 12.
David Moore, who took those pictures, we asked him, David, did you go up in the plane? He said, no, only one seat, just one seat, not enough room.
We're going to switch gears here and lighten up a little bit by telling you about a totally different story. Almost as long as man has been walking, it seems, simply walking has not been good enough. And so people have always sought ways to soar with the creatures of the heavens.
Wouldn't that be nice? TV9 Action News reporter Bruce Moore is standing by live at Eastgate Mall, where he has come across one of the newest twists in flight. And Bruce, what has prompted this magnificent invention?
Well, John, flying has never really been the problem. The problem comes when things cease to fly. That's why man invented a strap-on parachute to guard against situations like that. And as time passed, an engineer by the name of Steve Snyder out of New Jersey made a great leap in logic. He says, why not put the parachute on the plane?
Wait, let's take the compression releases off.
Pilot Bart Curtis is tuning up his pride and joy, the ParaPlane. Like other flying machines, the ParaPlane has an engine. But unlike many other planes, this contraption has no wings. The parachute provides the lift. It also provides for a soft landing in case the engine doesn't work. Even with the parachute, you'll notice Pilot Curtis is sweating. He assures us that is not due to nervousness.
It is due to 100% humidity, 85-degree temperature, and being a native of Denver, Colorado, where we don't have this.
With an hour's training, a novice can be prepared to take the ParaPlane into the friendly skies. No pilot's license required.
Couldn't be simpler. You need to know three things. If you can remember your left from your right foot to turn left, your right foot to turn right, and throttle up to go higher, throttle down to go lower.
The plane is billed as an airborne recreation vehicle, but Pilot Marshall says it does have some practical uses.
Spotting marijuana fields, as a general down in Mexico uses it, or border patrol, or spraying of crops. It can be equipped with a tank.
The pilots say hanging from nylon string several hundred feet in the air is surprisingly comfortable.
It's like flying in a big rocking chair.
And for a little less than $6,000, they say the view couldn't be better. Now, the flight that you just watched out at Raccoon Mountain Flight Center was just to get Curtis ready for the flight conditions around here. And as you can see, He is very, very experienced in his flight conditions right now, and here he is, flying right by our camera position. Modern-day barnstorming. Back to you, Rox and John.
All right, Bruce, thanks a lot. That's
Makes my hands
pretty
sweat.
neat, yeah.
Whew.
And now if they can only come up with a parachute for 747s.
Again, those are just a few examples of the amazing television coverage we were able to get in each market that we went into. But that was really only the beginning, because the next morning we'd wake up and go down to the newspaper box and generally find ourselves in full color on the front page, or at least the front of the feature page, in each newspaper in each town. Why? Because it's such a colorful apparatus that it just makes for great newspaper. This is from Tampa, Florida, and the headline here is "High from on High." Always very positive coverage for the ParaPlane. On the front of the regional page in full color in Gainesville, Florida. A couple of color pictures. There's Bark and I folding up the ParaPlane after a very successful flight for the media. In Chattanooga, full half page, full color, flying over the Eastgate Mall. And the malls, incidentally, are a great place for you to fly and promote the ParaPlane. Just make sure you get their permission before you do it. It's not that you're creating any danger, it's just that it draws such large crowds that the parking lot might not be able to deal with it. In Knoxville, Tennessee, front page, full color, and that's what all of Knoxville saw the next morning after we made our flight. And we have so many examples of it in the Tri-Cities where we met so many wonderful people. The Kingsport Times-News, again, in full color, and the headline there, "A Bird's Eye View," which is certainly what you get with the ParaPlane. In training, you'll learn many, many different ways to promote the ParaPlane. Again, though, the emphasis is on simply flying it. Anytime crowds gather, the county fair, the state fair, the Friday night football games, anytime a crowd is together, if you can fly the ParaPlane around that area, you'll elicit a tremendous response and a lot of new customers to boot. The cost of advertising, very, very little, because most of your publicity comes from the free kind of advertising we were just talking about. Taking reporters on first flights for free, of course, because they're doing a tremendous feature story on television or in the newspaper all about your dealership. You'll want to buy a little ad in the yellow pages and maybe distribute a few brochures in popular restaurants around town. Maybe put a little ad in the college newspaper. Maybe even a little TV advertisement come September when all those college and university students are returning and looking for something to do in your community. What I'm telling you is it's very, very, very simple to promote your ParaPlane dealership. Isn't that right, Jane Pauley?
What's that? Contributing correspondent John Alpert has found something for people who want to fly but who would like to skip all the formalities. He describes it as a parachute that instead of bringing you down, takes you up.
Yeah, and you know, I always wanted to fly, but I can't even do a good job driving a car. But I found something, it's a contraption called a ParaPlane, and this was invented by a fellow from New Jersey named Steve Snyder.
The basic rules of parachuting are that the air is awful thin, the ground is awful hard, and gravity is always working, which means you go basically towards the center of the earth. And we thought it would really be a good idea to figure out maybe we could make a parachute go up instead of down. So we came up with a ParaPlane. It was about a 3-year project. That's getting ready for the first launch. And believe it or not, it actually took off the ground and flew. So we flew very safely because the highest we got off the ground was about 5 feet. That was it.
What did the neighbors think of this?
We did stop a few cars on the road, so they were really kind of amazed. The principle behind the ParaPlane is really very simple. An increase in the power changes the angle of the parachute, causing the ParaPlane to rise in the air. More power and you go higher, but not any faster. Besides the throttle, the only controls are the foot levers. You just push them in the direction you want to go. Every time we fly, we attract a crowd.
So I'm wondering, what do you fellas think of these contraptions here?
They're unique. I like keeping all my wheels and legs on the ground, although they are quite nifty. required any license or anything for this?
Not a thing. Just go out. We got a little gal over there.
Yeah.
She's getting ready to go up on her first flight. She has never flown in an airplane. She's scared of being in an elevator.
Can't say I blame her.
By sitting in this vehicle, you become the pilot in command of this aircraft. You are ultimately responsible for keeping the vehicle inside the boundaries of the field.
Any last words, Mitzi?
Power up, power up, power up. Power up, power up, power up. Power up, power up. What a super job, looking good. Just keep steering left, and I'll take just a little throttle back.
Well, how many people does that make who have been up now, Steve?
We estimate probably somewhere between 20 and 30,000. She might be 30,001 maybe.
Cut it all the way back.
Now, are you crying from relief or from excitement? Or
Yes, all of the above. You wouldn't believe it up there. It's fantastic.
Even if both engines are off, this craft will make a nice, soft, gentle landing. He has stopped both engines now to simulate failure of both engines. He's descending very, very slowly, and he'll make a very gentle landing. A nice, soft landing. Anybody can do it.
What a super job! Congratulations! Excellent.
Good job.
Thank you. What a rush.
Did great.
Are you all right?
John, if you can fly it, we know anybody can fly it. We're also forming flying clubs, and we're organizing paraplane flight competitions.
We practice certain drills to perfect our flying. We come over this ribbon without touching it and land on the spot. The other is to come catch the top ribbon, but not the bottom ribbon. It looks much easier than it is. Perfect landing right on the spot.
Every time we fly, it gives me a chance to sign up new recruits. This is every person's flying machine. Anybody who's liked to fly or thought about flying or had a dream of flying, this is the machine you can go up and do it.
You really send somebody like her up in the plane?
Absolutely.
You really would?
If she said she'd like to do it, we'd be more than pleased to get you up in the air.
Oh, no. Scare me to death. Oh, no, no, no.
The fact is, when you fly, you forget about all your problems. The sky is a beautiful place. Everybody should be there at least once in their life. With me is Nathan Taylor, Director of Safety and Training for the ParaPlane Corporation.
I think a lot of people out there, as they look at the paraplane, if it's a new thing to them, they might be concerned about the integrity or the strength of our wing and the fact that it's made out of fabric. And if you look at the fabric in detail, you can see that it's very thin. But the modern technology that we use in manufacturing material now is we can make the material very thin, but it's very strong. And just to illustrate in layman terms how strong our wing is, the military used the same wing for the dropping payloads, and they take a 1,000-pound payload and drop it out of the back of a C-130 at 130 miles an hour, which produces in excess of like 15 Gs. In terms of the paraplane, when we fly it, Steve, we only exert 1 G. So basically, our wing is stronger than the wings that you'll find on a Cessna 172.
That's right. Almost all aircraft, that's probably stronger by a factor of 5 to 10 times as strong as an airplane wing would have to be.
And that's an interesting point about making things 5 to 10 pounds stronger. I know that, Steve, you're concerned about that. And in every case on the paraplane, we actually made things to be at least 10 times as strong. I was talking about the parachute, and the parachute comes down and attaches. There are lines on the parachute, and the parachute lines will hold 500 pounds. But at any given time while we're flying, Steve, we can never exert more than 8 pounds.
That's right. That's the whole concept is overall brute strength and enough strength to know that we'll never have a problem structurally on the vehicle. And we've accomplished that goal. The main suspension lines come down and they tie into a cable. This cable joins with the airframe, and this cable itself basically is a cable which will carry 1,200 pounds tensile strength yet the actual load that this cable is asked to carry at any one time is about 100 pounds. So that's 12 to 1 safety factor.
You know, we can see here that there's a lot of open space here, and I'm sure that a lot of the new pilots out there are probably camera people. They like to take pictures, and this is a wonderful opportunity for people to take pictures from.
It's a great camera platform. It's also a very, very good device for cruising around and just doing whatever you like to do, smelling the roses and enjoying the world from a different vantage point.
Well, I like to state, Steve, that I definitely feel that it is one of the world's safest flying vehicles, and I want to thank you for your inventing this and creating this great toy, this opportunity for anyone to go up in the air and fly.
Well, I appreciate it. It really is a goal of ours to get as many people into the air as possible who would like to experience their dream of flight. We know that it's a beautiful place to be, and we'd like other people to share that dream with us.
One area that everybody's interested in hearing about is the price and profitability in a paraplane. There are two models of paraplane, or at least two different canopies. The standard for people weighing up to about 180 pounds, and the high performance for people in excess of that weight. Now, on the standard canopy, the suggested retail is $6,150. Dealer cost, $5,100, for a dealer net of $1,050. For a paraplane with a high performance canopy, the suggested retail, $69.95. Dealer cost, $57.95. Dealer net is $1,200. A few moments ago, we met Nathan Taylor, our Director of Safety and Training. Right now, I'd like to introduce you to some of the office staff at ParaPlane. Receptionist Lena Tura, Art Mack in Client Services and Danielle Forte, Materials Manager Bob Palmer, and bookkeeper Doris Stevens. Controller Marianne Tura. Administrative Assistant Sonia Rosario. Purchasing Agent Janet Baberick. Director of Technical Services Dan Thompson. And someone you've met, President and CEO and inventor of the paraplane, Steve Snyder. Here's Power System Production Manager Scott Kelly in the Power System Assembly Department. Here, engines are received from West Germany, where they are specially built for the paraplane by Solo. Engines are first inspected, then cooling ducts are installed. From there, single engines are mounted on the core assembly to produce the paraplane's two-engine power system. From there, the line continues as carburetors, the Z-rail mounting assemblies, and finally control assemblies are added. The power system is then ready for final quality control inspection prior to being boxed for shipping. Here at Duncan Technology, a major modern metal fabricating plant, paraplane airframes are assembled. Special aluminum alloys arrive from such well-known international companies as Reynolds and Kaiser Aluminum to be processed into the many parts that make up a paraplane. All aluminum parts are anodized to both add to the paraplane's appearance and to totally protect the metals. Although all parts receive extensive quality control inspections during the manufacturing process, additional inspections are made during sub-assembly and on the final assembly line. ParaFlight Incorporated, ParaPlane's sister company, is the world's largest manufacturer of parachutes for both sport and military markets. Here, fabric is inspected before being accepted for production. Then patterns are used to cut all the individual parachute parts. Parts are then assembled at the many sewing stations to produce the beautiful designs. And as you can see, quality control is at the top of their list of priorities. As canopies arrive at ParaPlane for final rigging, the quality control inspections continue. Line sets are manufactured in this, the most colorful of ParaPlane's departments, for the final rigging of the canopy. Here is Charlie Mack, Master Rigger and Parachute Loft Manager. I'd like to refer once again to the print package that arrived with your tape, and specifically to the sheet that has to do with the dealer training seminar. Now, as noted on the page, training is for one representative per dealership. However, dealer training is structured in such a way that with the knowledge you gain during dealer training, you'll be able to go back to your main base of operations and instruct others in exactly the same way you gain that knowledge. Flight instruction with Nathan Taylor or other qualified instructors takes place all 6 days of dealer training. Day 1, the evening of the first day at training, is devoted to ground school, and then bright and early the next morning you're out there in the field and learning to fly the ParaPlane, and on the 6th day you'll be up to instructor level. The maintenance portion of dealer training handled by Dan Thompson or other qualified instructors. And maintenance, of course, a very important part of dealer training. Take you right from the initial setup of the ParaPlane out of the box, right through tack tuning and all the maintenance aspects that you'll need to know. Operations, well, they'll differ from dealership to dealership, as noted in here, whether you're a full or part-time operation, whether you just have yourself as a staff member or you have 10 people on staff. So many things that make operations the type of thing that we should discuss on a one-to-one basis, and we'll do that during dealer training. And marketing, well, as you're well aware by now, marketing the ParaPlane in a lot of cases is just simply flying the ParaPlane. However, we've got a lot of great ideas, and it'll be my pleasure to host a marketing seminar, a very interactive seminar. Well, we'll get a chance to address many other ways of marketing the ParaPlane. So that's a brief sketch of dealer training, but it's 6 fun days, 6 long days, but 6 very, very fun days. The reporter in this next piece we're about to show you purchased a ParaPlane following doing this report, so you know he loved it. They had a lot of fun doing this in Philadelphia.
Tonight, Don Pollock continues his special report on far-out fun for summer. You'll want to watch this one closely if you think far-out fun means up, up, and away.
We live in an age where private planes abound, by which thousands of Delaware Valley residents spend their leisure hours cruising the skies in modern armchair comfort and up-to-date convenience.
Yes, we've certainly come a long way from the early days of aviation when the flying machines were ungainly-looking contraptions with the pilot virtually dangling in midair. And today, 80 years later, one of the newest flying machines in the world is an ungainly-looking contraption with the pilot virtually dangling in midair. Yes, what may look like a reject from the Wright brothers' drawing board is in reality one of the biggest breakthroughs in manned flight. Because what you're looking at, ladies and gentlemen, is the only aircraft ever built in the history of aviation that anybody can fly after just a single half-hour lesson. People who have trouble steering a shopping cart can pilot this machine.
This is called a ParaPlane. It's kind of a unique flying machine because it's not an airplane and it's not a parachute. It's a powered parachute. If you can imagine just a parachute, all we've done is give the person a little propulsive device so they can fly where they want to, and it's still a parachute, so that's why it's easy.
And as far as developer Steve Snyder is concerned, his ParaPlane is not the only thing that's taking off. His business is, too, with orders from as far away as Australia and Japan outpacing production at his Pennsauken, New Jersey plant.
We're producing them at a rate of 35 to 50 units a week, and we can't build them fast enough because what we thought was true. Most people would like to try flying, and this is a neat device to try it with.
To do that requires no pilot's license, just a brief training session at the company's headquarters where a 20-minute film is viewed and the novice pilot sits in a model of the craft to familiarize himself with navigation, which on this is about as complicated as steering a sled.
It's simple. We train people in a basic course to fly in 1 hour. And originally we were training people who had never flown in 20 minutes, and they would go up and make their first flight and come down and solo. It's never been heard of in flying ever before.
Within 100 feet, you leave the ground on your own, traveling at the machine's top speed of 26 miles per hour. And while it's a little unsettling at first to realize you're sitting in mid-air, hanging under what amounts to an oversized pair of pantyhose, you soon realize the ride is as comfortable as swinging in a backyard hammock. And what with heavy city traffic clogging up major highways every afternoon, the device might just be the answer to the frustrated commuters' rush hour woes. This is Don Pollock, Channel 6 Action News.
I had an experience not long ago that I wish everybody could enjoy. I was treated to a tour of Steve Snyder's workshop. And if you think the ParaPlane is something, and I'm sure you do, wait till you hear about the future of the ParaPlane technology, or the powered parachute technology. Steve, that really is quite a collection of ideas that you're working on down there, and that Paraduster.
Well, the Paraduster is really just an evolutionary step from the man-powered paraplane. We thought we'd try to come up with a device that you could go out and do crop dusting with inexpensively, and something that would be really, really easy to use.
Mm-hmm.
And so we felt, since the paraplane flew very simply and it did not need an automatic pilot, that we'd actually basically design a radio-controlled paraplane that would carry the crop dusting spray, and you could fly it over the field using closed-circuit TV to see where it's going.
I've mentioned this to a couple of farmers since you showed it to me, and both of them right away said, "You mean I don't have to book a crop duster a year ahead of time? I could actually go out there and do it myself when I wanted to."
That's the neat part. I mean, you could just go get your paraplane, take it out, spray your crops when you needed to. It's on the spot all the time, and very, very low cost.
Mm-hmm.
And the unique part about it is that basically you can spray when the weather conditions are right and not have to schedule your crop duster to come in at the right time.
Mm. I can see this being a tremendous advantage, too, to third world countries, for example, where the cost of conventional aircraft and the availability just isn't there.
Well, that's exactly right. We're hoping that the paraplane will really touch all the people of the world in many, many different ways, and this is just one different application of powered parachute technology.
And this gets progressively better, because next I was introduced to a Parascan. Now, if you think the Paraduster has applications, the Parascan.
Well, the Parascan is basically using the paraplane as a remote control aerial surveillance device. Instead of taking up a person who would like to go up and just enjoy the scenery, we said, well, why not send it up with a bunch of optical equipment to take a look around without exposing a person to that particular environment, maybe to just use it for reconnaissance purposes, or for border patrol, or for night surveillance using special equipment. It flies basically very slowly and as a good platform to look down on the environment below and to see what's going on.
And this might put traffic reporters out of business.
Well, possibly so, but we think it's more technical perhaps in border patrol. We had some people come from a country that had many, many islands, and they wanted to make sure that the island borders were properly protected. People weren't coming in from the ocean in boats and subversives or whatever, and they felt that the paraplane could really be used for that type of operation.
So whenever you need an eye in the sky,
you could use the Parascan.
And without a pilot, what kind of flight time?
Well, the flight time goes up radically. You can be flying in the air close to 10 hours. You can carry a variety of sensors, not only optical, but other sensors that could detect certain things that you might like to see that's going on. And you do it at a very low cost. One of the interesting parts about any surveillance vehicle that they have now is that it usually requires an automatic stabilization system. And since the paraplane is automatically stable inherently, you don't have to spend the money for that portion of the system, and that cuts the cost down considerably.
I know there are a few things we can't talk about. That just when you deal with the government, there are some agreements made that don't allow us to address certain issues, but there are some military applications that I think we can mention here.
Well, I think my pet project really, aside from some of the other ones, the best project that I have going right now is the flying ejection seat. This is basically a concept where everybody has thought that when a plane is in trouble and the pilot bails out, that all we got to do is save his life by opening a parachute. But that's not really the total picture. It's really to get the pilot out of the airplane that's going down, but the total scenario is really to bring him back home safely. So we have a project that we call EARS, which stands for Eject and Return Safely. And that program basically envisions punching out of a jet airplane, opening up onto one of our square parachutes, and then having an engine integrated into the seat where it would start up after he punched out, and the pilot and the seat and the parachute would all fly up to 50 to 100 miles away from the point that he ejected and get back to safe territory.
Imagine if we'd had that during Vietnam. Let's address a subject that I would imagine everybody viewing right now is interested in, and that's what are dealers going to require in terms of facilities? And I'm talking about land area.
Okay, well, the paraplane is a very, very simple device, and it does not require a lot of room to take off or land. we do like to look at having an area that's big enough so that they will not hit an obstacle after they have cleared the ground. We've recommended basically about a 1,200 by 1,200 square foot square field would be enough to handle your paraplane flying. After you get more experience, or if you just wanted to fly in and out of a field, you could fly in and out of an area that was probably 500-600 feet square, and as long as you didn't have any big obstacles around it, that would be fine.
Right.
For training, you know, where you're training students, though, we're really looking really about a 1,200 foot by 1,200 foot area.
Okay. Now, if this training facility happens to be in an area of a farm area of low crops, say soybeans and corn and that sort of thing, how much actually cleared in there without any major obstacles like trees or power lines and that sort of thing?
Well, if you had basically a clear area you're talking about, you could put a 600-foot circle. As long as that was smooth and you could land and take off of that area, a 600-foot circle would be adequate.
So 600 by 600 minimum in an area of low crops, no high trees, no power lines.
No obstacles nearby.
Right,
really.
and 1,200 by 1,200 if it's bordered, say, by taller trees and maybe power lines along the road.
Well, one thing we like to emphasize is we really don't want to fly around power lines, no matter what. That's a no-no.
Right.
That's a no-no.
Of course, safety is the #1 concern of the ParaPlane Corporation. I know even in our meetings, even before we start talking about that all-important bottom line, your first concern all the time is the safety record and adhering to what has proven to be an excellent one.
Well, we are proud of that, and we do emphasize it all the time because it's so important. And to have a product that flies and to have a perfect safety record like we have, we feel is highly unusual, and we aim to keep it that way. We want to have the product that flies through the air and yet is inherently safe.
So there you have the future of the paraplane technology and what's required to apply that technology today in your own dealership. Thank you, Steve.
Pleasure.
Meet Mike Alex, a researcher for CBS News in New York. And meet Steve Snyder, the president of ParaPlane Incorporated, the world's largest manufacturer of rectangular parachutes based in Pensacola, New Jersey. Now, at first glance, it doesn't look like Mike and Steve have much in common, but when they get together, Mike, who has never flown before, will soar around the New Jersey countryside like he's been doing it all his life. What's more, he'll do it after just 20 minutes of training.
Okay, can you hear me?
Oh, loud and clear. How many?
You're sounding good here, Guru. It's loud up here.
Okay, fine. You having fun?
This is magnificent.
Steve Snyder is a well-known name in parachuting circles, and for good reason. He invented the first self-opening parachute, and he and skydiving ace Charlie Hillard were the first Americans to complete a baton pass in the air back in 1958, when sport parachuting was in its infancy. Now, after many years of flying and inventing, Steve has an even more ambitious goal.
What we felt we could do is produce a vehicle which you could fly that had virtually none of the critical characteristics of flight, and where we could possibly introduce people to the idea of flying in a super safe manner where they could have a lot of fun and with very little thought and attention to their own safety. And that was a heck of a goal, but I think we're getting there.
So Steve and his co-workers, Dan and Ad, spent the better part of 3 years designing and redesigning a new air vehicle, one that would be safer and less expensive than anything else on the market, and one that would fit into the trunk of a mid-sized car. When Mike Alex met Steve at a farm 100 miles south of his hometown in Queens, New York, and saw the new paraplane, he was more than a little skeptical.
The first time I saw it, I really couldn't imagine it flying. I mean, it looks like a little go-kart trailing curtains behind it. It did not look real at all. It looked like a game, like a carnival ride.
But then Steve set to work explaining the minimal controls and maximum safety of his brainchild, and pretty soon, Michael began to believe.
If a gust of wind hits the vehicle, it will move the parachute first. You will then just swing back underneath the parachute. So don't even concern yourself. You are just sitting in a little compartment under the parachute, and you've got your power plant to take you where you want to go. So if a gust hits the thing, there's no correction.
So if everything fails, I just hold on to my parachute.
That's right. If everything fails, you just basically can reduce the power, and you'll come down on a parachute, and you will land, and you will get up and walk away, no problem. Can't do that on an airplane.
Then, after testing the two-way radio headset, Mike was ready for his first solo flight.
took off, right when everything was starting, and we pulled away, and I turned the wrong way, and then I turned the right way, and all of a sudden I was in the air. And I wasn't too comfortable about being in the air because I didn't feel that I had gotten us up in the air. So when we took off, when we first went up, I was wondering if this wasn't a big mistake. But then about 15 seconds later, I thought, well, this is scary, but I'll sit it out. Half a minute later, I was fine, and a minute later, I was having the time of my life.
Power, keep it going. That's a full power, full power.
Of course, you can look anywhere you want. You kick the pedals, you spin around. I spent a great deal of time just taking in whole sections of the county. It was just enjoying the view. It's a view I've never had before.
Okay, now add the power and take her around.
I would say it's much easier to maneuver than a car or a bicycle. You know, it's very slow and it's very calm. You know, it's really very simple, except for the fact that you're way up in the air.
Mike seems to really enjoy flying the paraplane, but like most good things, his time in the sky has to end. He lands it like a pro.
Cut it. Oh, there you go, beautiful. Push both forward, you got it. Fantastic, fantastic.
Unbelievable.
You're a pilot. Congratulations,
Fantastic.
What a flight. You're really fantastic. What a great flight.
Ever had.
Really beautiful. I'm proud of you.
Now that Mike's back, it's time for Steve to do a little showing off.
I just enjoy being in the air. I just think it's a beautiful place to be in. It's pure. It's detached from the world itself. It's detached from the problems on the earth. It's a beautiful environment, and you have total freedom. You can go up, you can go down, you can left, you can go right, and I just love the air anyway, just being in the air. There's just something really exotic about it.
Steve looked pretty slick up there for a while, but then he realized he forgot his gloves, so he radioed in to make sure they'd be waiting for him when he came down. But he wasn't ready to land quite yet.
You can fly this thing up 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 feet, but the real fun of it all is to be able to just fly around low level and just enjoying the scenery.
The main thing that separates the paraplane from all other forms of air travel is that if the engine quits, all you have to do is wait for the parachute to glide you gently back to Earth. And the fact that it's so easy to operate, that anyone can do it, gives its creator his greatest satisfaction.
Just such a charge for us in the program to see people who have never flown before go up and do it. We had one fellow go up and he came down after he landed. He says, I can't believe I just did what I did. You know, and there he was. He had gone into the air and come down. And he did it safely and just had a good time doing it. And this is a whole new field. This is what we think is exciting.
I'd like to refer once again to the literature package that came along with your tape, and this time specifically to what's included in the ParaPlane dealership. It's quite graphically displayed on this page, but I'd like to recap it very briefly for you. Of course, along with your ParaPlane dealership, the one ParaPlane for training and display. That's with a high-performance canopy, incidentally. The tachometer, 2 tachometers as a matter of fact, for keeping your ParaPlane in tune. A training aids kit. Now that includes all the materials necessary for you to conduct the ground school with your students and all the various forms that are necessary. A communication system, so you can guide your brand new parapilots through the sky during their first flight and ensuing fun flights, we hope. The special tools kit. There are various tools that are specifically designed for the ParaPlane. We want to make sure that you have all of those. Promotional kit, various posters and brochures to assist you in gaining traffic for your dealership also included. Training, as we discussed a little earlier, 6 days for one representative. Territory, we'll discuss on the telephone the exclusive territory around your main base of operations. We'll delineate that on a map, so you know specifically the territory into which we agree not to place any other ParaPlane dealers. Expenses, well, They're all outlined here. Airfare, round trip, coach economy from the airport nearest your place. Automobile for 7 days, although dealer training is for 6 days, we thought you could use that extra day to do a little sightseeing. Hotel for the length of your stay during dealer training, and the evening meal each day of dealer training. The Paramount rebate program is also in the literature package. Hope you've had a chance to go over that. Continuing factory support, as we mentioned, the same people who invented the ParaPlane still with the corporation, and they're available to you to discuss anything that might arise back at your main base. And of course, something that's very intangible, and that's the authority to be a ParaPlane dealer. It's a valuable asset, so consider that as well. There you have it, the items that are included in your ParaPlane dealership. You know, we hope that you're the kind of person who likes getting up early in the morning when that air is nice and calm, and well, your clients will enjoy flying their first flight during that calm air too. But if you are the kind of person who likes getting up early in the morning, well, perhaps you caught this recently.
It's 38 minutes after the hour. Science editor Michael Gillen joins us this morning with a report on a new sport that appears to be taking hold and taking people aloft. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Mort, and that's true. I'll tell you, the fantasy of flight has always inspired our imaginations, but with mixed results. Now we have the ParaPlane, and with it a relatively safe way to experience the thrill of flying.
Flying machines have come a long way in the last 100 years. They've become sturdier, sleeker, and speedier. Until now, that is. This throwback to the past is the hot new wave of the future. It's called the ParaPlane. Part parachute, part airplane, and all of it designed for the ride of your life.
It's a fantastic feeling. You really view the whole Earth, and you're detached from all the individual problems that are happening on the Earth every day.
Steve Snyder loves flying. He's a pilot, skydiver, and inventor of the automatic opening parachute. The ParaPlane, though, is his pride and joy.
Almost everybody in their lifetime, I think, have sometimes thought, what it would like to fly. I think we've given them a vehicle to see that dream true, and I hope that we can help them.
The ParaPlane is a kind of space-age go-kart. Anybody can fly it after a 1 or 2 hour lesson. 13-year-old Leanne Dayon has been flying paraplanes since she was 11.
It's exciting. Because you're looking down at everyone, so, I don't know. Everybody looks small. You're up there, and I don't know, it's fun.
The oldest flyer out here is 74-year-old Marshall Barnes. He's a former heart attack victim who says paraplaning is good for his health.
This is beautiful. Low and slow, calm and relaxed, and a lot better than that shuffleboard deal down in Florida. The most beautiful thing is I reduced my wife to about so high in about 2 minutes.
Everything about the ParaPlane is designed for fun and safety. The frames are made from an aluminum alloy that's light as a feather and strong as an automobile bumper. The parachutes are designed to lift 300 pounds without any problem.
The canopies are sewn together using pieces of high-strength nylon, and they're made so that when the parachute opens up, it takes on the shape of an airplane wing.
So far, the ParaPlane has one of the best safety records of any flying machine ever invented for recreational purposes.
One of the biggest selling points of the ParaPlane is its safety. Now, what's the worst thing that could happen to you while you're flying? The engines give out, right? Well, if that happens, then this literally becomes just a parachute, and you float down safely.
This afternoon, Steve has decided to put his money where his mouth is. While flying at 300 feet, he deliberately cuts off both engines.
Okay, we're in a glide now, no engines, just coming down like a parachute only. Instead of our feet, we got some wheels to land on, and we're just coasting around here. It's nice and quiet, really having a good time. Just coming in for a landing now. It's a piece of cake. There it is.
It's a dramatic demonstration of the ParaPlane's safety, and one so convincing I decided to take my first flight. Earlier in the day, I had taken the mandatory flight school, and afterwards I had signed some legal documents that protect the ParaPlane manufacturers in case of an accident.
Right there, huh?
That's good.
I'm official now, huh?
Well,
I can fly this thing?
Yeah, as soon as I put this in.
Okay, Steve, all set?
Mike, I've been looking at it. I don't think we're going to take off right now. I said the wind has picked up a little bit, and I think we ought to hold off until it's just right for your plane.
Really?
I'm sorry. I think we're going to have to hold it, but it's in the interest of safety.
I'd have to wait for another day, but after what I'd seen this afternoon, I was convinced of one thing. You don't have to be a bird to fly like one.
Bad weather, eh, Michael?
Well, I'll tell you, we waited until dark, and that doggone wind did not go down, but I'm looking forward to going up.
You don't need a license, obviously.
No, you don't. It comes under the FAA regulations of recreational vehicles, no license, but you ought to have a little ground school before you go up.
There's another good example of the kind of national attention that we're able to get for ParaPlane. Now, when we do get that kind of television exposure, we get a lot of phone calls at corporate headquarters. Those callers are directed to the dealers in the field, the dealers nearest them. So you can look forward to a lot of business from the kind of national exposure that we get right across this great country. Let's get to the most important part of this videotape, the bottom line. In your print package, you received a page called the ParaPlane Worksheet. Well, I'd like to encourage you to read the other side, the facts to consider very carefully before having what I think will be a lot of fun, working on your income expense projection. I know it's a little difficult to do at this time, but at least it'll be a guideline. It's the kind of business that you can expect to do, whether you're full-time or part-time, whether you want to work it alone or whether you have 10 staff members. But work it through. Come up with the expenses that are required to do the kind of income that you're considering, and then get to a bottom line. Now, if that bottom line relates well, then call me, because I think we've got things to talk about. You've probably got 100 or maybe even 1,000 more questions. Well, we'd be more than happy to discuss them with you, go over your territory, and hopefully get together. The price, $14,900. The income, well, you've worked that out yourself. The expenses, you've done the same with. If it all looks good, I'm at the other end of that phone line. The number's in the letter that accompanied the tape and the print package. My name's Lynn Marshall, and I'm sure looking forward to hearing from you soon.